Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and once again it's time for the Q&A, so let's go ahead and get this started. Alright, first question. Is it good to do high sets of triples to see an increase in your 1 rep max? Well, that's a very context-dependent question, brother. For someone like me, no. For my clients, no. Who are high set triples for? High set triples are for people who don't want to do 1 rep maxes, who want their serious strength training work to put hypertrophy on them. Okay, that is who it is for. Now, we're not talking about speed work, because a lot of speed work might be 10 by 3, like speed benching and stuff. We're talking about people who are using this as a primary training modality. All right, the reason this works is because you are getting enough training volume to stimulate good hypertrophy, and there's plenty of studies on high set triples showing that they build just as much muscle as multiple sets of 10. Okay, that's why you're doing it. In addition to the fact that they increase 1 rep max more because you are using a higher percentage of your 1 rep max. In other words, if you lift at 70%, your maxes are not going to go up as much as if you lift at 75% or 80% or 85% or 90%. So because you're usually working in something in the range of up to about 85%, 10 by 3, which is pretty normal, you're at a higher percentage of your max than traditional hypertrophy work. Therefore, your maxes go up more. The downside is that this is a hybrid form of training. Okay? It's a hybrid form of training. You're trying to do 2 different things with 1 tool. And oftentimes we can do that. The way that I train, if I wanted to reach the same goal, and I do want to reach the same goal, I do 1 rep maxes. Okay? And then I do hypertrophy work. People would say, why? It's way more specific and it's way more time efficient. It takes a long time to do 10 sets of 3. Okay? You know, you can do 3 or 4 sets of 10 or 4 sets of 12 in less time than you can do 10 by 3 with the same training tonnage. You can do it in half the time. They give the same amount of hypertrophy. You also get less beat up. If the only really heavy work you do is your maxes, you just don't get that beat up. I mean, I max out every day, right? Every day you guys see me max out on different lifts. And I do hypertrophy behind it. Now that's the approach I prefer. Is what you're doing, will it work? Yes. Have I used it? Yes. Have I discussed it in the past as a tool? Yes. It can work. Just understand that that's the sort of thing that I would push for maybe an early intermediate lifter. I was using it when I had detrained on some of my lifts, because for a while I had a lot of things going on in my life. I couldn't train anywhere near the way I wanted to. I didn't bench or squat, and I had to rebuild those lifts. I basically just did deadlifting and overhead pressing and chin-ups and stuff for over a year. Yeah, guys, I've squatted 550 recently since then. After taking that much time off from squatting, but I had to rebuild my squat to start with like a 315. Yeah, I did that sort of training and it worked. Realistically, though, you would be better off doing maxes and hypertrophy work, says me, my opinion. Not a fact, it's my opinion. It's a better use of training resources. Don't try to train for hybrid goals. If you want to hit maxes, hit maxes. If you want to get big, do volume. They can be done in separate exercises in different parts of your workout. You want conditioning, do Metcon. You can train specifically and then get overlap. Just my opinion. I think that's the better way to go. All right, next question. Sorry about that, guys. Hopefully no one really hears it or it's annoying. I left my air conditioner on. Yes, I have my AC on in the winter time because it's hot in Houston. So, and I forgot to close the door to my sound room where I'm recording because it's 4 in the morning. I thought it would be fine. All right, but next question. How would you advise a younger athlete, 12 right at puberty, to train for football, D-line, and left tackle? Man, 12 years old. I don't know that your training needs to be specific like that at 12 years old. I would focus on just big movements and teach them control. All right, they need to learn control, and they need to build glute and hip power, pressing power. I would start with the basics. I would start with some box squatting, right? Don't even bother to teach a 12-year-old how to free squat. Get them on a box. It'll carry over better to a sport. Some box squatting, some glute work, like some glute bridges. I don't even know that I'd have him deadlift up front. You could. He's probably not very coordinated at 12 years old. So deadlift may not be his best option yet, because he's going to tend to shoot his butt up in the air if he's a skinny 12-year-old. You could do some deadlifting. Maybe find mats or whatever to find his ideal leverages as you build him up. But definitely some box squats, glute bridges, bench pressing, chin-ups, pull-ups, right? A little bit of overhead pressing. Probably all he needs, just some basic programming. He's 12 years old. 12 years old, the kid just needs a base. But you need to make sure that all his support musculature is built. When I say build a base, because he's going to play football, this doesn't mean we do chest and arms, right? He needs to build glutes. He needs to build hips. He needs to build hamstrings. He needs to build his back, in addition to pressing muscles, right? So again, box squats, glute bridges, high priorities. Chin-ups, pull-ups, rows, benching, a little overhead pressing. Needs to be exercises he can learn to control. Keep him away from ego lifting at 12 years old. He'll get hurt. Teach him technique, control, a lot of dead stop training. Again, the box squat, the glute bridge. You could even put him on a floor press instead of the bench, right? Because he might be skinny. He might be a skinny 12-year-old. Range of motion could be an issue on a good bench. Could be shoulder problems. Get him on a floor press. I think that would be really good. That would be the direction I'd go personally. Just my opinion. All right, next question. Hi, Jason. Can the stiff-legged deadlift, not Romanian, thank you for making that distinction, be incorporated as a main exercise on max effort deadlift day? Well, it could. It could. It wouldn't be my first choice. Wouldn't be my first choice. Why? I don't know that awkward position is ideal for maxing on. I don't know that it is. But you know what? At the end of the day, a max pull is a max pull, is it not? Right? A max pull is still a max pull. You can do whatever you want. But here's the question I would ask. Have you exhausted your other stuff? And I'm not saying for the really advanced lifter doing even more random stuff isn't good. You know, I mean, when you have anything over a 550 deadlift, there comes a point where for ME work, you probably could get away with a lot more variation. Have you exhausted all your conventional and sumo pulls? Even if you don't have bands and chains or anything, you've got block pulls, deficits. You come up with at least 2 different box and deficit heights for each one, plus the main one. That's 10 different deadlifts. And if you're doing ME deadlift every other week and squatting every other week, let's say you're running a traditional conjugate template, what are you looking at? That's 20 weeks worth of deadlifts. You're only going to have to hit your classic lift once every 20 weeks for sumo or conventional. I mean, you've got options. You go to bands and chains and everything. I mean, honestly, you could off sumo and conventional if you have bands, chains, and blocks and deficits. You could end up only hitting your classic lift once a year and never repeat the same exercise. So the question I would ask is, do you need the variation? Well, probably not. Is it an option? Sure. Someone with very, very low equipment access, could it be a workable one? Sure. Sure. You're still straining maximally, but it's also straining maximally in a way that you don't necessarily want to strain ever when you go to a traditional lift. Because again, you're doing much more back angle. Like I said, you could. It's an option. I mean, I could go either direction with it, really. I could go either direction. There might be lifters I would have do it. But the thing that I would ask is why? Are you just bored? Do you just want a different pull? Do you have lack of equipment? What is your reason for that? That would be the first thing I would ask. But the other thing I would always remind you, you can do whatever lifts you want in a conjugate rotation. Okay, you can do whatever lifts you want. As long as you're straining maximally on some sort of deadlift, some sort of squat, some sort of press, you can get away with a lot of different stuff and still get results. Because maximum strength is maximum strength. A press is a press. A pull is a pull. A max is a max. You're just learning how to strain at different angles. Alright guys, well that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time in part 2.